was on my way to my son's office, carrying a thermos of black coffee and 37 years of hope that I was wrong about him. I never expected that one small act on the train that morning would be the thing that saved everything I had left. Tell me where you're from, then answer this honestly. Do you believe that the way you treat a stranger when nobody important is watching says more about you than anything else you will ever accomplish? Drop your city and write, I believe, if you do. What I'm about to share with you will prove that right, and it might also save you from making the same mistake I almost made. My name is Walter Briggs. I'm 67 years old, and this is what happened. I left my apartment on the north side of Chicago at 7:45 that Thursday morning, January. The kind of cold that gets into your bones before you even reach the end of the driveway. My meeting with my son, Ryan, wasn't until 10, but I'd been awake since 4. I couldn't sleep. I'd been going back and forth in my head all night about whether to sign those papers. Ryan had been asking me for 3 months. Said it was a simple account transfer. Said it was for tax purposes. Said it would protect my retirement savings better than the fund I'd had for 22 years. He's a senior financial analyst at Meridian Capital, one of the most respected investment firms in Chicago. I figured he knew things I didn't. He probably did, but somewhere between his explanation and my signature, something in my gut kept saying, wait. I rode the red line south toward downtown, rush hour. Every seat taken, people pressed shoulder to shoulder, everyone staring at their phones. I stood near the center doors, holding the overhead bar with one hand and my thermos with the other, watching the gray city slide past the windows. At Fullerton, an old man got on. He had to be close to 80. Gray wool coat, patched at the elbow, a scarf that had seen better decades. He was carrying an old leather briefcase, the brass clasp broken and held shut with a rubber band. He stepped onto the car and the rubber band snapped. The briefcase fell open, papers scattered across the floor of the train. A dozen of them, sliding under seats, catching under people's shoes. Nobody moved. People looked down at their phones. A woman shifted her bag to her other shoulder and looked away. The old man knelt slowly, painfully, one hand on the seat beside him for balance, trying to gather his papers from the dirty floor. I set my thermos on the seat next to me and crouched down beside him. Let me help you with that, I said. He looked up, surprised, as if kindness from a stranger was something unexpected, something he'd stopped counting on. Thank you, he said. I appreciate that very much. We collected his papers together. I straightened them as best I could and handed them back. He tucked them carefully into the briefcase and held the clasp together with both hands. Here, I said, and I gave him my seat. He shook his head politely. I couldn't take your seat. Please, I said. I've been sitting all morning. It feels good to stand. That last part wasn't true. My knees had been bothering me since October, but he sat down, and the way he exhaled when he did, slow and grateful, told me he needed it more than I did. He looked up at me, really looked. His eyes were gray and sharp and very calm, the kind of calm you don't earn easily. You didn't have to do that, he said. My father taught me you stand up when someone needs a seat, I told him. I've never found a good reason to unlearn it. He smiled at that. Something in the smile felt heavier than just politeness, like the words had landed somewhere specific inside him. The train moved south. We rode in silence for a few stops. Then he spoke again. You're heading downtown? My son's office, I said. Meridian Capital. You know it? He paused just slightly before answering. I'm familiar with it. He works there, senior analyst. I shifted my weight. He wants me to come in and sign some paperwork today. What kind of paperwork? I don't know why I answered. He was a stranger on a train in a patched coat with a broken briefcase. But there was something about him that made the truth feel easier than the usual nothing much. Transfer documents, I said. He wants me to move my retirement savings into an account he manages. Says it's better for me in the long run. The old man was quiet for a moment. And what do you think? I looked out the window at the elevated platform passing below. I think I worked 37 years as a plumber to save that money. I think my wife spent the last 4 years of her life watching me do overtime so we'd have something when it was over. And I think I love my son, but I don't know why I need to sign anything on a Thursday morning in January when I've done fine for 22 years without switching. The old man said nothing right away. Then, quietly, trust is earned, not inherited, even by family. Something in his voice made me look at him more carefully. But before I could say anything, the train was slowing. Monroe. The doors opened. He rose from the seat carefully. I offered my arm automatically, the same way I had with my own father, years ago. "Thank you, son," he said. We stepped out onto the platform together. The cold hit us both. I turned up my collar. "Which way are you heading?" I asked. He nodded toward the tall buildings to the east. "Same direction as you, as it happens." We walked together down Madison Street toward the glass towers of the Loop. He moved slowly but steadily, like a man who had walked these blocks thousands of times and had stopped being in a hurry about it. "You raised your son well, I imagine," he said as we walked. I thought about that for a moment. I tried. His mother and I both tried. "She's gone? 5 years ago. Cancer." He nodded once, with the weight of someone who knew what that sentence actually cost to say. "She would have been proud," he said, "of the kind of man who gives up his seat." I didn't answer. I was thinking about Ryan, about the boy who used to wait for me at the door when I came home from jobs, about the man who now sent me calendar invites when he wanted to talk. We walked a full block in silence. I didn't ask his name. It didn't feel necessary. Some conversations just exist without those things. When we reached the entrance to 180 North LaSalle, the building where Meridian Capital occupied the top 3 floors, I stopped. "This is me," I said. He looked up at the building with an expression I couldn't quite read. "So it is," he said. "Are you heading in somewhere nearby?" He looked at me with that steady gray gaze. "As a matter of fact," he said, "I believe I'll go in with you." I wasn't sure what to make of that, but I held the door. The lobby of 180 North LaSalle was built to make you feel small. 40-foot ceilings, black marble floors so polished you could see yourself in them. A wall of framed portraits along the east side, serious men and women in serious frames, the history of the building's most distinguished tenants. Security desk in the center, 2 guards who looked up when we walked in. It was 9:15. I was early. That was intentional. I thought maybe if I arrived before the meeting, Ryan and I could talk. Just talk. The way we used to when he was young. When I'd drive him to swim practice at 6 in the morning and we'd stop for donuts on the way back. I'd brought him something this morning too. A thermos of the dark Colombian roast he grew up drinking at our kitchen table. I thought maybe it would remind him of something. The receptionist on the Meridian floor was a young woman named Ashley. The nameplate said so. She had a headset on and was typing without looking up when I approached. "I'm here to see Ryan Briggs," I said. "I'm his father." She looked up. Her eyes moved from my face to my coat to the thermos in my hand. Her smile did not quite reach her eyes. "Do you have an appointment?" He asked me to come in at 10. "I'm a little early." She typed something. "I'll let him know you're here." The old man stood near the elevator bank, looking at the framed portraits on the wall with the quiet focus of someone reading something they already knew by heart. A man in his mid-30s came through the glass doors from the inner office. Tailored suit, hair product, the kind of confidence that comes from never having been told no by anyone he respected. Chad Weston, Ryan's colleague. I'd met him once, at a company event 2 Christmases ago. He had called me the plumber to Ryan's face and laughed when he said it, as if it were a charming thing to say. He stopped when he saw me. A flicker of amusement. "Hey, Ashley," he said, not lowering his voice. "Who's this?" "He says he's Ryan Briggs's father." Chad looked at me, at the thermos, at my coat. He smiled, the kind of smile people smile when they are not actually amused. "Ryan's dad," he said. "Huh." He pulled out his phone. Yeah. He walked a few steps away, but kept glancing back as he dialed. I could hear pieces of it. "Yeah, he's down here." "No, early." I know. He's just standing there with like a coffee thermos." A pause. Then, "Yeah, I'll keep an eye." He hung up and drifted back toward Ashley's desk, pretending to check something on the display screen there. I stood near the elevator and waited. The old man had finished looking at the portraits. He came and stood beside me. Neither of us said anything. 14 minutes passed. Then the elevator opened, and Ryan stepped out. My son is 37 years old. He looks like the version of himself that got everything I worked to give him. 6 feet tall, suit that cost more than my first car, hair that someone else styles. He walked off that elevator like he owned the floor he was walking on. He saw me. His jaw tightened. He crossed the lobby, took me by the elbow, and steered me a few feet from the desk. "Dad." His voice was low and flat. "I said 10 o'clock. I know. I wanted to be early. I thought we could. You can't just show up whenever you feel like it. This is a professional environment. I brought you coffee." I held up the thermos. "The dark roast, like we used to." He looked at the thermos the way you look at something left on the curb. "I don't want that." "Ryan, do you see where we are?" His voice rose slightly. Not shouting, controlled, precise. The way you talk when you want to humiliate someone without technically yelling. "This is Meridian Capital. I have clients on this floor. I have partners walking through here. And you show up 45 minutes early with a thermos like you're picking me up from soccer practice." I just thought, "You didn't think." That's the problem. He said it loud enough that Ashley looked up, that Chad turned his head. "You never think about how these things look. Do you have any idea what my colleagues say when you come up in conversation? Do you know what it's like to have to explain?" He stopped himself. Recalibrated. "Just come back at 10. Wait downstairs." The words landed differently than he intended, I think. Or maybe exactly as he intended. I'm still not sure. I stood there with the thermos in my hand, 67 years old, in a lobby I didn't belong in, being told to go back downstairs by my son. The marble floors reflected everything. Chad was looking at his phone, but not typing. Ashley had stopped pretending to work. And then the old man stepped forward. "Young man," he said. His voice was not loud, but it carried. Ryan turned, looked at him, looked at the patched coat, the old leather briefcase. "Who are you?" The irritation in Ryan's voice was barely contained. "Someone who rode the train down here with your father this morning," the old man said simply. "Okay." Ryan's eyes moved back to me. "Dad, I told you. I watched your father give up his seat for a stranger this morning," the old man continued, as though Ryan hadn't spoken. "Kneel down on a dirty train floor to help collect papers that weren't his. Stand for 40 minutes on a cold morning because he thought someone else needed the seat more." "That's great," Ryan said. "Good for him. Sir, I don't know who you are, but this is a private—" And then I listened to him talk about his son. The old man's voice was unhurried. He said he worked 37 years, that his wife watched him do overtime so they'd have something in the end, and that he doesn't understand why he needs to sign papers today. The lobby was very quiet. Ryan stared at the old man. Then something shifted in his expression. A small thing. A crack. "Dad," Ryan said. "Lower now. Who did you say this was?" "I don't actually know his name," I said honestly. Ryan looked at the old man again. Looked harder. Looked at the face. At the eyes. At something he was working to place. His own face changed color in stages, like watching weather move in. And then Chad Weston, from across the lobby, made a sound. A short, airless sound, like something had knocked the breath out of him. "Ryan," Chad said. His voice was strange. Ryan didn't look at him. He was still staring at the old man. "Ryan." Chad's voice cracked this time. Ryan finally looked at Chad. Chad was pointing at the wall, at the portraits. The largest one, centered. The one that had been there since the building opened. An oil painting. A younger version of the same gray eyes. The same calm expression. Beneath it, a brass plate. The name engraved on it was not unfamiliar to anyone who had ever worked in Chicago finance. Arthur Clement Hale, founder, Meridian Capital. Served as chairman, 1987, 2019. Ryan's face went white. He turned back to the old man. The old man, who was watching him with that same steady, unhurried expression he'd had on the train. "No," Ryan whispered. "That's not." "Hello, Ryan," Arthur Hale said quietly. "I believe we've met once before. Your onboarding, 8 years ago." Ashley stood up from behind her desk without thinking about it. Chad's phone slipped from his hand and hit the marble with a crack. Several people who had been passing through the lobby had stopped and were now very still, and the elevator opened again. The man who stepped out was Marcus Webb, the current managing director of Meridian Capital. Mid-50s, silver at his temples. A presence that reorganized the air in any room he entered. He had been heading to a morning meeting. He stopped 4 steps off the elevator and took in the scene. Me, with my thermos. Ryan, gray-faced. Chad, frozen. And the old man in the patched coat standing in the center of the lobby. Marcus Webb's briefcase stopped swinging. "Arthur," he said. The word came out like a man who has stepped onto ice and is testing whether it will hold him. The old man, Arthur Hale, turned to him. "Good morning, Marcus." Marcus walked forward slowly. When he reached Arthur Hale, he extended his hand with both hands, a two-handed grip, the way you greet someone you genuinely respect. "I didn't know you were visiting today, sir. Nobody told me." "Nobody knew," Arthur said. "I prefer it that way, as you know. I like to see how a room behaves when it doesn't know I'm watching." Marcus's eyes moved to Ryan, to me, back to Ryan. "Ryan," he said. And in that single word was an entire conversation that neither of them was going to enjoy. Arthur Hale looked at me. "I told you on the train, Walter. Trust is earned, not inherited, not by family, not by reputation." He turned back to Marcus. "I'd like to sit in on whatever meeting was planned for this morning. The one about this man's retirement transfer." Marcus looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at the floor. "Of course," Marcus said. "Absolutely, sir. My office." He gestured toward the elevator. Arthur Hale nodded to me. "Mr. Briggs, I believe this concerns you. You should come too." I looked down at the thermos in my hand. Ryan hadn't taken it, hadn't looked at me since Arthur Hale said his name. "Ryan," I said. My son didn't answer for a moment. When he finally looked up, something had broken open in his face. Not remorse, not yet. Just the recognition that the ground had shifted and everything was different than it had been 4 minutes ago. He walked to the elevator. We all got in. The ride to the 34th floor was silent, except for the soft, mechanical sound of the cable. Marcus Webb's corner office looked out over the river. Arthur Hale took a seat without being offered one, the easy movement of a man who has sat in rooms like this more times than he could count. Marcus stood near his desk. Ryan sat in the chair against the wall, arms folded, not looking at anyone. I stood near the door, still holding the thermos. "Show me the documents," Arthur said. Marcus took the folder from Ryan's hands. Ryan handed it over without speaking and opened it on the desk. He read for less than 30 seconds before his jaw tightened. "Ryan," Marcus said, "walk me through the structure of this transfer." "It's a standard consolidation," Ryan said. The confidence in his voice was the thin kind. "Tax-advantaged account, better yield curve. It protects his. Whose name is the receiving account in?" A pause. "Mine," Ryan said. "It's managed under my name on his behalf." "And is that disclosed clearly in this document?" Another pause. "It's in the appendix," Ryan said. Marcus set down the papers. He looked at Ryan for a long time without speaking. Arthur Hale turned to me. "Walter, your retirement fund, the one you've had for 22 years, what is the current value, approximately?" "A little over $214,000, I said. "My wife and I put it together over time. I've added to it every year since." Arthur nodded. "And the account your son wanted you to transfer it into, did he explain that it would become a discretionary managed account under his sole authority?" I looked at Ryan. Ryan didn't look back. "He said it was for tax purposes," I said. "It's in the appendix," Ryan said again, quieter this time. "Your father is 67 years old," Marcus said, and his voice was no longer the voice of a professional managing a situation. It was colder than that. "He came in here today with a thermos of coffee he made for you. He rode the train because he trusted you." He closed the folder. "Ryan, you've been with this firm for 8 years. You know what we require of our analysts with regard to family financial management. You know the disclosure rules. You know the conflict of interest protocols. You intended to have your father sign documents that buried the key terms in the appendix and then show him out of the building." Marcus's voice was flat. "I've read this 3 times now, and I know exactly what this is." Arthur Hale spoke quietly. "Do you know what I built this firm on, Ryan?" Ryan said nothing. "I built it on the principle that money is just a measurement of trust, and that the moment you weaponize trust, family trust, client trust, any trust you have destroyed, the only thing that matters in this business." He paused. "I watched you speak to your father in this lobby. I watched you say what you said. In front of your colleagues. In front of strangers." He looked at Ryan steadily. "The man came here on a cold morning with a thermos of coffee he made for you, and you told him to go back downstairs." Ryan's arms loosened from their fold. He stared at the floor. "I'm placing this account transfer under formal review," Marcus said. "Effective immediately. Ryan, I'll need your access credentials suspended pending that review. Ryan looked up. Marcus, I'll also be filing a disclosure report with FINRA. Based on what I'm reading, there are potential violations here that I'm not going to sit on. Ryan's face was the color of old chalk. I can explain. Ryan. Marcus stopped him. Not harshly, just with finality. Go home. We'll talk tomorrow. Bring your lawyer. Ryan stood slowly. He looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time since he'd walked off that elevator. What I saw in his face I won't try to describe. I don't have the right words for it yet. I'm not sure I will for a long time. He walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the frame. Dad, he said. Go, Ryan, I said. Just go. He left. The door closed softly. Arthur Hale turned to Marcus. I want the best fiduciary attorney on your roster assigned to Walter. Today, not tomorrow. Already thinking it, Marcus said. No fees. Of course not. Arthur looked at me. Walter, I want you to understand something. You are going to be fine. The account has not transferred. Your money is exactly where it has been for 22 years, and the attorneys here are going to make sure it stays that way. I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure I could. I sat down in the chair. Ryan had vacated because my knees were not doing well and the room was spinning slightly. Marcus Webb leaned against his desk. Mr. Briggs, I owe you an apology on behalf of this firm. What happened in that lobby is not who we are, or who we're supposed to be. You didn't know, I said. We should have known, Arthur Hale said simply. That's the whole point. He reached over and picked up the thermos I'd set on the corner of Marcus's desk. May I? He asked. Please, I said. He unscrewed the cap, poured himself a cup, took a long sip. His eyes closed for just a moment. Dark Colombian, he said. I haven't had good coffee in weeks. We sat there for a moment, the three of us. 2 old men and a managing director. The river visible through the floor-to-ceiling window. Chicago gray and cold and moving outside. Your wife made this blend? Arthur asked. Her recipe, I said. I've been making it the same way since she passed. He nodded once and drank the rest of the cup slowly, like he had nowhere to be, like this was exactly where he intended to spend this particular Thursday morning. 4 weeks later, I was standing in my kitchen making coffee at 6:30 in the morning, and it occurred to me that the kitchen was mine in a way it had never quite felt before. Everything in it, every shelf and window and worn handle on the cabinet, mine in a way I had stopped taking for granted. The retirement account stayed in my name. The firm's attorney had confirmed that within 72 hours of that meeting, the transfer documents were voided. Marcus Webb had been thorough and fast and asked for nothing in return. Ryan's situation was complicated. The FINRA review was ongoing. He had not lost his job, not yet, but the investigation had consequences that would follow him for a long time regardless of outcome. His reputation in the city's financial community, the thing he had built so carefully, was now a question instead of a certainty. I did not feel satisfaction about that. I want to be honest about that. Whatever he had done, or tried to do, he was still my son, and the boy I raised, and the son who used to wait at the door for me to come home from jobs. He had sent me a letter 12 days after that Thursday, handwritten, 7 pages. The handwriting was not neat, which surprised me, because Ryan is a careful person in most ways. Some pages were easier to read than others. He said things in that letter that I know cost him something to write. He said things about his mother, about the way he grew up, about a resentment he had been carrying for years that he had never told me about, something about the boys at school who made fun of the truck I drove, about a parent-teacher night when I came in my work clothes and he had wished I wouldn't. He said he was ashamed of that resentment now. He said he was ashamed of a lot of things. I have read that letter 4 times. It is in my kitchen drawer. I have not answered it yet. I'm not sure what answering it means. I'm not sure forgiveness can be rushed into a form that's worth anything. But I know I'll answer it eventually. He's my son. That doesn't expire. Arthur Hale and I have coffee on the first Friday of every month now. There's a diner on Chicago Avenue, the kind that's been there since before either of us was born, where the booths are red vinyl and the coffee is dark and reliable. He orders the same thing every time. I bring the thermos anyway. Last month, he told me something that I keep coming back to. He said, I left the firm in 2019 because I was tired. I thought I had done what I was supposed to do. Built something, passed it on. And then I didn't know what to do with myself. He wrapped both hands around his mug. I started riding the train again, the way I did when I was young, before the cars and the drivers and all of it. I wanted to remember what ordinary felt like. He looked out the diner window at the street. Most mornings, nobody looks up. Nobody makes room. People step around each other like they're furniture. He paused. But then, one morning, a man in an old coat drops his briefcase, and a stranger kneels down on a dirty floor and helps him, and gives him a seat. For no reason except that it's the right thing. He looked at me. I hadn't seen that in a long time, Walter. You reminded me it still exists. You saved my retirement, I said. He shook his head. You were going to walk away from those papers anyway. I could hear it in everything you said on that train. You already knew something was wrong. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had known since October, the first time Ryan asked. Maybe the thermos was never really for Ryan. Maybe it was for me. Something to hold on to in a lobby where I felt like a stranger in my own son's life. We drank our coffee. The diner filled up around us. Outside, Chicago did what Chicago does in February, which is to make you wonder why anyone ever chose to live somewhere this cold. But inside it was warm, and the coffee was good, and across the table sat a man who had walked the same streets I walked and come to the same conclusion about what matters. I'm not a rich man. I have never been a rich man. My hands are calloused, and my knees give me trouble in the cold, and my truck is 11 years old and happy. I have a retirement account with my name on it that my wife and I built together over decades. I have a kitchen that is mine, and I have a friend who sees me clearly, the way people only see each other when they stop performing. That is more than I expected from a Thursday in January. There are things I would tell you now, if you're still with me. Not as a lecture, just as what I've learned. Don't hand over the thing you built because someone who loves you also happens to know the right language to make it sound like a good idea. Love is real. So is paperwork. The two are not the same thing. Don't mistake someone's discomfort with your ordinariness for their love for you. If your child is ashamed of your work clothes, that's a wound inside them, not a failure inside you. You do not repair their wound by pretending you didn't earn those clothes. And don't ever stop being the person who kneels down on a dirty floor to help a stranger collect his papers. Not because anyone important might be watching, but because of who you are when they aren't. My wife used to say that character is just habit wearing its oldest clothes. I never fully understood that until this year. I think I do now. Ryan might find his way back. I believe he might, because I know who he was before the marble lobbies and the tailored suits and the resentment he carried without telling me. I know the boy who waited at the door. That boy is still in there somewhere. I have to believe that. In the meantime, I have coffee every first Friday of the month with a man who reminds me that one moment of decency, quiet and witnessed by no one, can turn the whole direction of a life. I keep thinking about what he said on the train that morning, before we knew each other, before any of it. Trust is earned, not inherited, even by family. I'm writing this down so that if you're somewhere today in a lobby where you feel invisible, if you're holding a thermos that nobody took, if someone who is supposed to know you is telling you to go back downstairs, you'll know this. You are not invisible. You are not nothing. What you built is real, and it belongs to you. And somewhere on the same train you're riding, there might be a person who sees you exactly as you are. Don't stop giving up your seat. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of something or someone, hit like so that more people find it. Subscribe to nb-sweetrevenge for more stories like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear that kindness still exists in this world. And write amen in the comments if you believe that how you treat people when nothing is at stake is the truest thing about you. I'll see you in the next story. God bless.